It's just being fancy, but I haven't done it just to be fancy. A lot of times you can view an Excel document as a presentation. When you're presenting something, visual communication is very important. You know, one of the things you can communicate visually is color. Okay, you know, green is green light, and here I'm gonna write check for present value. So whenever that is checked, we're dealing with present value. In fact, I'm gonna select these two. I'm gonna merge and center those two cells, and I'm gonna give that a ivory color, maybe red font, something like that. All right. Now, first of all, I'm gonna change this. If that thing is checked, I want to write present value. Otherwise, I want to write future value. Well, we're going to do that with an if statement. If it has three arguments, the first argument is the condition. That thing is equal to true. I don't even have to say equal to, but I'm being a little bit anal about it. Since I'm writing a text, I put that in double quotes. So if that condition is true, it's going to do whatever I tell it to do in the second argument. If it is false, it's going to do whatever I tell it to do in the third argument. But if I'm doing that, if you want, you can even put a conditional color on that. Up to you. And I also want this statement to say balloon payment if I'm doing present value. But if I'm doing future value, I want that cell to say starting balance. If that equals true, balloon payment, otherwise starting balance. I don't know why it doesn't. Oh, okay. This is me being economical on the screen real estate. I could have done two templates, one for present, one for future. They're structurally exactly the same. All I have to do is copy paste, but that saves me a lot of space if I'm going to do something else over there. So if I'm doing future value, that's my starting balance. And I already have done that. Is there anything else? No, that's it. Let's also do this one. If that check is true, say target future, present, or I'm gonna actually be fancy on you. I'm gonna do this. Uh, Target and add a space in there. Whatever this thing is. That's where you can stick together two text arguments. That's ampersand allows you to do that. This is just a fancy way of doing it. There's a function called concatenate, but this is much easier. All right. Now, the only thing I have to do is tell Excel to calculate how to calculate either present value or future value given all the other inputs. Remember, greens are my inputs. Let's do with just present value. If you don't remember the order of things, arguments in a function, you can hit PV. That's the name of the function. I learned this yesterday, actually. And while doing that, hit Control A. It brings up this. It basically is a helper for you to choose your arguments, because you may not remember the order of arguments. The rate that's going to be used is the period rate, which means I'm going to take my annual percentage rate and I'm going to divide that by payment frequency. So if the APR is 12%, that means, and it's monthly, every month you're going to be paying 1% interest. But APR, technically speaking, that is not effective annual rate. You should never compare loans with different payment frequencies based on APR. In fact, we're going to add component here for effective annual rate. But market convention is quoting the interest rate always as APRs. Number of periods is simple. Length of time in years times payment frequency. So if you get a 6-year loan, you're going to make 72 payments. In fact, this even shows you exactly how much it is. This is a 15-year loan, so 180 payments. PMT is periodic payments. Technically speaking, the last two arguments are optional. FV is short for final value. If you're doing present value, that's equivalent to balloon payment. If you leave it out, it's going to take it to be 0. But we want to make this parametric. So we're going to put in the balloon payment in there. The last argument is the annuity type. There are technically two types of annuities. One of them is called the ordinary annuity, which is what we're doing, where the payments are made at the end of the periods. So if I borrow to buy a car, I'm gonna make my first payment at the end of next month, not tomorrow. Okay, that's called an ordinary annuity. There are also annuities where you make the payments on the first day of or the beginning of the period. It is called an annuity due or annuity in arrears. The only thing you will ever see of that is if you happen to win the jackpot of some sort of lotto, they give you two options. Either you get a lump sum cash, or they're going to divide. Let's say you won $300 million. They said, we're going to give you $10 million each for the next 30 years. But the first payment is going to be right now. That's an annuity due. Of course, an annuity due with 30 payments is exactly equivalent to one payment plus ordinary annuity with 29 payments. But if you leave it out, it assumes it's an ordinary annuity. Of course, it puts, let me do this. Let me change the formatting. In accounting format or currency formatting, if it is negative, it actually makes the number red. In accounting, it puts parentheses around that. It is negative because that's the way the PV function is. I'm going to put a negative in front of that. Now it's positive. Let me change the color a little bit so that formatting would show better, not the fonts. Come on. For now, okay, let's do it that way. I'm doing that only to be able to show you the formula easily. Excel does weird stuff with the colors. But remember the role of each of those arguments. The first argument is period interest rate. The second argument is number of periods. The third is payment. And the last is the balloon payment. So even without doing anything else, I can answer a few questions. Suppose you could borrow at 749. The most you can pay for a car is 250 a month, and you're gonna do this for 7 years, and there is no balloon payment. That's basically the present value of those 250, those 84 payments of 250 a year, a month you're gonna make. But that's also how much car you can afford. Okay, assuming you have no down payment ability. If you have 5,000 for a down payment, you can afford a car that's 21,000 and some change. Or if you can convince your bank to loan you for 8 years, you can afford something a little bit more expensive. Even in this very simple form, it allowed me to solve a problem. I know how much car I can afford if I know the payment. Anybody has bought a car and got a loan? So you always paid cash for your crappy cars? I know. You don't have a sugar daddy like me to my kids. I basically gave them a almost brand new car. But it was cheaper for me that way. Otherwise, they're going to buy something. They're not going to take care of it. Of course, who's going to pay for the upkeep? Me. Uh, when you go to a car dealer, a smart car dealer, the first thing he's going to ask you is, it's not about the car, how much you can afford to pay a month. The real question that you should ask him is, this is the car I like. How do you get me into that car?